Funding for the Maddy Report is made possible by grants from the Spencer family, Community Health System, Harris Ranch Resort, Producers Dairy, Valley Children's Healthcare, and The Wonderful Company. Additional support provided by from the Maddy Institute, the Public Policy Institute for the Valley's public universities. This is the Maddy Report with Executive Director of the Maddy Institute, Blake Zante.
Welcome to the Maddy Report. The California legislature recently concluded its session with members spending more time back home in their districts. Today we're joined by one of the San Joaquin Valley's own members, Assemblymember Juan Alanis. We'll be discussing many topics from his start in public service, recent legislation, and the work he continues to do for the San Joaquin Valley. Assemblymember Alanis, thanks for joining us on the Maddy Report
today.
Thank
you for having me today.
Really appreciate you being here. Well, let's start off. I always like to ask every time we have an elected official join us, talk to us about your start in public service. You were in law enforcement before you decided to run for office. Maybe take us through your journey up until now in the Assembly.
So I started with the Stanislaus County Sheriff's Department in '94 as an Explorer Scout, for which viewers don't know is a part of Boy Scouts, boys and girls interested in law enforcement, which was me, and continued on as a deputy and then into a sergeant, and then my Assembly chapter, which I didn't think was ever going to be a thing. I figured I was just going to retire as a deputy sheriff or a cop, right? And an Assembly member, Heath Flora, gave me a call one day and asked me to come up to Sacramento and showed me the benefits of my experience in law enforcement that I could bring up to Sacramento and make a difference. And I was wowed with what people up there already knew about me as far as what I could do and how I could do things. And ultimately, after talking with friends, family, of course my wife, getting permission from her, making sure that I can go to Sacramento, we made it happen, and it's been great.
Now, you said that you spoke with Heath Flora, who also represents parts of Stanislaus County. You also come from Stanislaus. Maybe talk about your district and some of the areas that you represent for folks who may not be familiar.
Yeah, so District 22 is a brand new district. So for every 10 years with the census, they redraw the maps in a sense. And Heath Flora and Adam Gray actually used to have portions of what is now District 22. Basically, Heath Flora's district got moved a little north. The district that Adam Gray had, which is now Assembly District 27, is now pushed a little south, giving you this brand new district, no incumbent, and it includes the cities of like Modesto, Ceres, Turlock, Patterson, and you got like our smaller communities like Empire, Denair, Diablo Grande, Snelling. It goes in number. It includes Stanislaus and Merced County as well. Hilmar, Snelling, Gustine is also another city that we have. So it's a very big district. It has. I know I have some members who maybe have 11 counties, which are really big, but as far as like driving from one side to the other, maybe an hour and a half you can get from one end to the other, and lots of ag.
Now, with such a big district and so many different communities, how do you and your office connect with residents throughout the district?
So when I ran for sheriff in 2018, and my platform at the time was to bring back community policing. And community policing's basically philosophy is you go out to the people. Don't have them come to you, whereas like you'd have a police station downtown and expect somebody who works an 8 to 5 job to be able to show up when they can't, because then you're closed, and so you reach out to them. So I use that philosophy with my own team. So we have mobile districts, district office hours. So we will actually reach out to all of our communities that we have, especially the cities, and we'll do the cities on the same days that they have city council meetings. So that way my staff can just stay in the community and then attend the city council meetings and give their report or maybe take questions.
Now, you talked about all the different communities that you have and connecting with residents. And often here, whether it's a Republican or Democratic district, we know that the Valley's voice is often overlooked in Sacramento and Washington. How do you ensure that the Valley is at the table when decisions are being made in Sacramento?
So with the same philosophy of the community policing, I take it a step forward and I have advisory group meetings. So I'll be with like farmers, insurance groups, realtors, veterans, educators, have them come and meet them, because I want to meet with those with the boots on the ground who actually know what's going on, how these maybe regulations or this legislation is affecting them. So I meet with them to find out what's going on so I can bring that up to Sacramento so they can continue to have a voice.
Thank you. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back with Assemblymember Juan Alanis. This is the Maddy Report. Welcome back. We'll now be discussing with Assemblymember Juan Alanis his current legislative priorities and bills that he's introduced in Sacramento. Assemblyman, thanks for joining us. Now, if you could just give us a brief overview of your legislative package this past year, and I know also it was recently announced that you had some bills signed by the governor. Maybe just briefly take us through those bills and what they did.
I will. So we had 3 bills signed by the governor this year. Our last term, we were able to get 16 bills, and of course, we still have one more year, part of this legislative year, to go. But the 3 that we had, 2 of them were part of my elections package. As you may know, we had a very, I would say tight race, but a very well looked at race nationally with our Congress seat. And we were going like a month into it. And it's like, we have technology. We have states that have finished their elections in one night, and we are still counting. We are still figuring out. So we got with some of the elections teams and found out like what can help, how could we help. And so these bills are one to help them with the counting prior to, and then the other one is to help with jurisdiction or with the lines so people know what districts they're in. The other one was a bill that complements another bill that we had passed my first term, which was Nevaeh Sports Act law, which provides, it has AEDs, automatic external defibrillators, at sporting events. So you have maybe Pop Warner or maybe these cheerleading groups that are maybe borrowing a school, but they don't have access to the AEDs. And so we wanted to make sure they had AEDs because unfortunately we have lost some of our student athletes due to complications with heart-related issues that AEDs could have helped with. So this third bill was to complement that, to make sure that I had the training was provided and for the coaches and those on staff. And so that helped.
And obviously it takes a lot of bipartisan political support to get those bills not only through the legislature, but also onto the governor's desk for his signature. So kudos to you on that. A few other bills that you've worked on some bills that address enhancing child safety and protections, such as AB 767, AB 528. Could you just maybe elaborate briefly on these bills as well? So
with 767 is our sexual violent predators. So let me take you back to last term again when we had another bill. We had Bill 1954. And so we found that there was an issue with SVPs, again, sexual violent predators, being basically like injected into our communities. Well, 1954, we saw a flaw where the DAs, the chiefs of police, the sheriffs, they weren't part of this planning or part of notifications. Their old notification ways were, well, you know, we left a message. Well, they left a message for a phone number from probably 20 or 30 years ago. So we needed to require them to make sure that they had input back and as far as placements as well. And so, so now we have 767, which then took a further step because we had SVPs being placed next to schools, like homeschools. Not everybody's sending their kids to schools. They're doing homeschooling. A lot of neighborhoods are coming together and making their own homeschools. And so we wanted to make sure that they were recognized also so that they weren't placing these SVPs next door to their schools. Because as you know, there's 100 feet, 1,000 feet, 100 yards. You know, they have those terms and conditions as part as their release program goes. And we wanted to make sure that we kept those kids safe. Another thing was 578. That's like my baby, I guess you can say right now. I used to be a crimes against children's detective. And when I had a child who was basically had bad things done to them, sometimes it's videoed, right? And I would have those in evidence. And as far as the court process goes, the defense attorneys also want to see this. And so then I would be forced to make a copy, or the detectives would be forced to make copies to provide them, essentially victimizing my victim again by making another copy of this. Well, there is a federal law that says you don't make another copy. These defense attorneys can go to the police department, police station, the DA's office, and review them, so no copies ever made again. And it seems like a great idea. I don't know who would be against this. We didn't get any no votes in the Assembly. As it went over to the Senate, then we started getting some friction. And as you may know, they put price tags on a lot of these bills. And for this bill, this basically gives the judge the ability to say, no, I'm not going to order them to make a copy. You're going to go see it. They put a price tag of $250 million on this bill. And I'm like, that is ridiculous. So it's going to take still a lot of work, but in my office, we always talk about who's going to look out for the children. That's our philosophy. Usually you'll see that with our bill packages that have to do with youth, is who's going to look out for them. And so we've taken that responsibility.
Well, certainly very important work that you're doing. We're going to take another quick break, and we'll be right back after this. This is the Maddy Report. Welcome back to the Maddy Report. We're continuing our discussion about Assemblymember Juan Alanis' work at the state capitol and in his district. Assemblymember Alanis, you're on a standing committee and multiple other committees. You're a member or vice chair of many committees in the state legislature, vice chair of the Committee on Agriculture. Could you talk about your roles on different committees and maybe also what the Assembly Agriculture Committee does?
I can. So I vice chair 3 committees. Public safety, which kind of makes sense. I mean, I was in law enforcement most of my life. Ag, as you mentioned, then also natural resources is another one I vice chair. So as part of being vice chair, I feel that it's my responsibility to make sure that the committee knows what they're voting on, because that is really the first line of defense or the first line of making a bill happen. And I would want to make sure that these committee members are educated. I've been on some of these tours and field trips with members who didn't have clues on what certain ag things were. I had one time they mistaken a feedlot for a dairy, and I had to point out to them that the cows didn't have udders. So I wanted to make sure that they're educated on this, and so that way the bills will go through correctly, or at least more informed when they're making votes. So that's my priority. And as far as the ag part goes, especially with the Central Valley, and we are all ag, so I always make sure that's a priority when I'm voting.
Now, I think this is sort of a great segue, and you sort of already answered my question, but how does your role as a representative from the San Joaquin Valley shape your votes on bills that concern agriculture, public safety, natural resources? You mentioned educating your colleagues on some of these issues, providing your perspective, but also when legislation comes before you, what does that process look like?
So a lot of it is, again, going back to talking with the stakeholders, the boots on the ground. If I can't know everything. One time I remember when we had our issue with eggs, as you may recall, all the egg prices went up because we were killing all the chickens for all the reasons they did. I thought it would be a great idea, and some of the people up in Sacramento thought it would be a great idea to do a state of emergency to allow other egg layers to be part of this. And as you may know, we have like a cage-free issue going on. And so I talked with our egg people, and they said no. And I'm glad they did, because for the right reasons, all the time, effort spent on what they did to get regulations and legislation there would have thrown all that away. And again, I'll have good intentions, but the best way to do is reach out to those with the boots on the ground, especially with the ag.
Now, recently, something your office announced was you were able to secure over $2.5 million for constituents, organizations in your district. Obviously, the San Joaquin Valley is usually a disinvested region. Could you talk about, what does that $2.7 million look like? How are those funds being used, and what will it benefit in your district? So
a lot of those, the majority of all those funds, the $2.7 million, are the hard work of my team, my district team especially. They have constituent services. And so we have people who will call in for like EDD or maybe Medi-Cal. I have like doctors' offices who've said, hey, we've been billing basically the state and they don't pay us. And we're like, at some point, we're going to go bankrupt because we need that money back to resupply what we've already provided. And so with the hard work of my team, they've been able to get the $2.7 million back to those small businesses, back to those constituents that have, again, just been waiting. Maybe this was sitting on somebody's desk and they never got to, that we've had to push to say, hey, they need to be paid back. And that's how that happened.
Now, you've also been recognized as a very bipartisan member of the state legislature, someone who works across the aisle. Obviously, the Maddy Institute is very keen on promoting that level of bipartisanship, sort of in the Maddy way. Why is it important to work across the aisle? Maybe if you could just share, your philosophy on that. And how do you want your bipartisan work to stimulate other efforts throughout the legislature?
So when I first came in as an assembly member, I promised that I would get things done. And to get things done, you have to build relationships. Relationships are key pretty much in any industry, I think, that you're in, especially in politics and legislation and regulating. And so I started really early developing these relationships with my colleagues, especially from across the aisle. And I think a lot of my colleagues on my side of the aisle started taking notice that, wow, Juan's getting bills through. Juan's not getting any no votes, and they're actually working with him and asking Juan to co-author their bills as well. So I think I've earned the respect of my colleagues over there for me working with them. Problem Solvers is another thing. It's a Problem Solvers caucus that I'm part of that now I get to be one of the co-chairs of. Republicans and Democrats working together. People always laugh and maybe wonder what goes on in these meetings, like, do we fight or anything? But we're actually very cordial, and we actually complement each other. And I wish that was done with the whole House. That would be great. But that's still a work in progress.
Well, thank you, Assemblymember Juan Alanis. We'll be right back to wrap up our conversation. This is the Maddy Report. Welcome back. Assemblymember Alanis, thanks for joining us on the Maddy Report today. Let's talk about a few hot button issues before we go. Immigration is a big national discussion at the moment, especially here in the San Joaquin Valley. What's been the response from your constituents, and have people expressed their concerns on this issue? And what are some things that you're hearing in the district? So
everybody's talking about immigration. It's in the state capital, it's in the district. I mentioned Problem Solvers to you earlier and how we work together, and we actually put a working group together on immigration to basically make a stand from a bipartisan approach. And we all agreed border security was our priority. So we totally agree with that, because, like, how can we keep everybody safe if we can't watch what's coming through our borders? The other one was we like to look at due process and also streamlining the immigration services. Sometimes I tell people the scenario where, like, if I want to get them out of it, if that's the issue at hand is the actual them not being legal, then how can we make them legal? Well, you have people that have been here 20, 30 years, right, that are trying to and working on it, then let's try and help them work on that and get them that way. As far as the criminal side, hey, I'm all about holding people accountable, so that's the way I work on that one.
Now, another big issue, Proposition 50. We're going to be voting on that here very soon in November. California Republicans have obviously come out very strongly against this. The governor is a big proponent of Proposition 50, and one of the arguments that California Republicans have broadly made is that this quote of two wrongs don't make a right, sort of, acknowledging that Texas could be wrong as well in its efforts doing mid-decade redistricting. What are some of the conversations that you're hearing around the state capitol among both your Republican and Democrat colleagues? Well,
I think when our Republican leader, James Gallagher at the time, said the two wrongs don't make a right on the assembly floor, he meant that with his heart totally. And I think a lot of people grasped that, and I think they were a little shocked to hear him say that, but we're on the same page to two wrongs don't make a right? And we have our Constitution that says that we're not supposed to be doing it, but yet here we are changing the rules. And we changed the rules a lot up in Sacramento that the majority party will fix or make it to where it benefits to what they need to get done. And it's unfortunate being the super minority to watch that happen. But it's an issue that's going to be which state's next. If this does pass, which I'm against, I want no on that. We should just stick with what we have right now. But if this does pass, what other states are going to go next? And then it's just going to be like a domino effect is what this is going to do.
Now, last before we go, another hot button issue, high-speed rail. Earlier, Governor Newsom reached a deal with state lawmakers to continue funding for high-speed rail. The Trump administration has sort of pulled back some key federal funding for high-speed rail. How does this sort of dispute between California and the feds shape the conversation going forward around high-speed rail? Obviously, the Valley is sort of ground zero for this discussion, but there's been a lot of support, opposition from different key entities and officials throughout the region. What's your take on this, and where do you see the landscape moving forward?
So I'm not a fan of the high-speed rail, or I'll say choo-choo train usually when you hear me talk about it. 250 million, I believe, is that the number? 267 or something like that?
It's somewhere close to that.
Or billion.
Yeah,
Billions.
billion, yeah,
With a B. We have all these programs that I haven't been able to get funded because I was told we didn't have money. But yet we're funding this. This should be a luxury right now, not something that's a necessity. We were told, by 2020 from Los Angeles to San Francisco, and we're nowhere near that, but yet they're saying in 7 years, maybe Merced to Bakersfield. No, stop doing that. And even when it is done, I've even asked those that are heavily involved with it, like, who's it going to benefit? And from what I understand, it's going to benefit those maybe who are going to office jobs, not our construction workers, not our ag workers, none of those that need to go up and down with their trucks. They could telecommute now. I mean, we have technology that does that. I mean, COVID was a big part of us making telecommute happen. And so we could use it for that reason. But going back to all the programs that have been unfunded because we apparently don't have any money because they said Trump didn't give it to us, but yet we're dumping it all into the choo-choo train. We need to be widening our freeways. We need to be investing into our communities. That way is what we need to be doing. Water infrastructure. Again, we haven't invested in that since the 70s, and population's growing, and we're not doing anything about it. So, not a big fan of the choo-choo train, but I really wish they would just stop, pause, and let's maybe see where else we can help California continue to grow, or maybe bring them back up to par, and that would be great. I would be happy with that.
Well, Assemblymember Alanis, thanks for joining us on the Maddy Report today. Really appreciate your time and your perspective.
Thank you.
And thank you for tuning into the Maddy Report. To learn more about the Maddy Institute, visit themaddyinstitute.org. The views expressed in the Maddy Report are those of the individuals participating in the program and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Maddy Institute. If you'd like to share your thoughts about today's episode of the Maddy Report, please visit our website at maddyinstitute.com.